Welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast with your host, Funk Roberts.
We are live, and welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast. This is episode number 136, and I'm your host, Funk Roberts, former professional athlete turned online fitness expert, coach, and health professional, specifically for men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And welcome to this podcast dedicated to you men who are striving to be the best you can be. And everything we talk about is dedicated to you, the man in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, whether it's recovery, mindset, whether it's workouts, nutrition, whether it's supplementation, or sleep, or what have you, anything that's going to help you improve your overall health. And today I'm so excited because today we have one of my, was an idol, still is. I shouldn't say was not, but it's idol now, friend, right? Idol now, friend. Today we have Mike Dolce on the podcast. Mike Dolce is, if you don't know who Mike Dolce is, he is an icon in MMA, a legend in MMA, specifically in the UFC realm. Mike's been around since before the UFC, before Dana started the UFC. And if you don't know who he is, Mike Dolce is a strength and conditioning coach, but more importantly, and noted for his weight cut. He's a weight cut coach, a nutritionist, a fitness expert who throughout the years helped many athletes, many fighters make weight, cut weight, and everything in between, right? It's from the time they land at fight week, during fight week, it's before the 8 weeks or 9 weeks or whatever it is before the fight starts, it's after, it's all of the things that encompass ensuring that a fighter is healthy during their prep for their fights, during the weight cut, while they're on stage, after the weight cut, in the octagon, and afterwards. And this is Mike Dolce, who throughout the years had trained and was a nutritionist for UFC fighters UFC champions like Johnny Hendricks and Ronda Rousey, and he helped Randy Couture, worked with Thiago Alves, and so many, right? I mean, Gilbert Melendez, Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen, and the list goes on. And the one thing that Mike is known for, aside from the Dolce diet, is none of his fighters have ever missed weight. And because of that, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, he was a trainer of the year in the World MMA Awards. Creator of the Dolce diet, which, I mean, today has been used by probably millions. And if you are a trainer or a coach, I would 100% tell you that is the nutrition plan, the Dolce diet certification that you should be going to, specifically if you're training fighters or athletes. But throughout the years, the one thing that I've admired the most about Mike is that he's talk the talk, walk the walk, and be consistent in his messaging. Because one of the things that I always bring up, there's a few things, right? It's not enough just to know things, because there's a lot of people out there who have the science behind things. There's a lot of trainers, fitness people out there who, they'll know things or tell you things, but has that really translated or transferred over into results? Like, how many people are they actually getting results for? Because they could be an expert, but is their expertise actually translating into results? Because if you're an expert and you're not getting anybody results, then who cares? But if what you're saying, what you're programming, are you helping? Are you transferring lives? Are you showing people by the results that you get over and over and over again? That's proof. And that's how I relate the respect that I have for people in this industry is, where's the proof? And not just 10 guys or 10 women. I want to see thousands. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And that's why when I create the Over 40 Alpha Brotherhood, which you can join for $1 trial, 30 days, I will help you lose 50 to 20 pounds, depending on how much you need to lose. You will do that in the first 30 days, and I will take you through that whole program, follow along workouts. You'll get nutrition, you'll sleep strategies, recovery so you don't get injured. It's tailored to you, the man in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s who needs to naturally increase testosterone and reboot your metabolism that's probably dead. Show you the foods to eat, the foods to stay away from that are killing your hormones, the type of workouts that we should be doing at our age that'll help us build muscle and burn fat and get in the best shape of our lives. And in 30 days, for $1, I guarantee you will, if you follow the program, which is very easy, I make it very accessible. All the workouts are follow along, so you just click play and I'm there with you, training with you, making sure you're doing everything right. You'll lose 5 to 20 pounds. And you'll get that consistency. And not only that, you're going to get the support not only from me, because I do live coaching calls every Friday at 9 a.m. in our group, but you're going to have other brothers, thousands of brothers who are on the same journey, who've gone through the same journey and are continuing on a journey. And the one thing that if you look at if you look at our proof page, because it's not my proof page. I'm not the one with all the testimonials on it. It's our proof page, the Brotherhood proof page, to see the thousands of men on that page. All you have to do is scroll. And it's not just before and afters. We're talking about the cholesterol, reversing type 2 diabetes, more energy, testosterone levels naturally increasing, the relationships with their parent, their wives, their kids, being able to keep up with their kids, doing things that they've never done before, more before and afters, and it goes on and on and on. And if you go down, it'll take you literally 15 to 20 minutes to scroll. That's the proof that it works. So I don't have to defend anything that I do. If anyone comes and says, oh, Funk Roberts' program, he's not blah, blah, blah. Now, I do base my program on research and science, but I'm not throw science in your face every time you see me. You hear me on this podcast. Practical stuff that you can take that works. Over and over and over again. Did I have to use science and research to create the method that helps these guys, that continues to help them? 100%. But just because I do that doesn't mean it's going to work. I have to put it into play, put it into action. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter where you're starting, doesn't matter how much you weigh, it works. And so I say the same thing over and over again, and I've got the proof. Mike Dolce has been consistent with his nutrition, with exactly how his nutrition set up, which we were always on the same page there, because I was doing strength and conditioning too, and I was helping people with nutrition. And throughout that whole time, from 2010, to when I stopped training strength and conditioning for fighters, Funk MMA, we're always aligned, but we never met. But I always looked up to Mike Dolce because of that, because all of his fighters always made weight. They never missed weight. And he's talked the same thing over and over again. And you're gonna hear in this podcast episode his journey, his story, some crazy things that have happened to him throughout his time in the MMA in the UFC world. But now, over the last few years, it's more than a few years, but he's transitioned to, as a 47-year-old man, helping guys become the men they need to be based on his childhood. And so you're going to learn some amazing things. You're going to finally see that the Dolce Roberts combo, the respect that I have for this man it goes beyond words. I mean, he has, from the time I used to follow him all the time to today, he has never changed. He's been the same Mike Dolce. He has said the same things, and he's stuck by his values, his beliefs, his virtues, and his goals. And you can see the difference between all the other guys out there who attack Mike and the Mike Dolce that you see here, and why there's a difference. Transformational focused versus transactionally focused. He's transformation over transaction I'm Transformation Over Transaction, and there's a few other, but today I'm so excited. I want you guys to tune in. And we also talk about testosterone. Speaking of testosterone, this podcast episode is sponsored by my Alpha Max Test 3D Plus. This, I'm telling you guys, is insane. I know you can't see this if you're listening, but I'm putting up my bicep here because these just came in. I mean, they sell out. This is Alpha Max Test 3D plus. This is our new testosterone supplement. It's not just about helping your testosterone levels naturally increase. It's cortisol management. It's estrogen management. It's stress and mood enhancement. Help with strength. Help obviously with we've got a couple of ingredients in here: Tonkat Ali, Fedosia agrestis that combined will help literally increase your testosterone levels. This took us a year to create, myself and Dr. Stephen Anton. And, because my whole program is about naturally helping men increase their testosterone levels, men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and knowing that, yes, one supplement's not going to do the work, I certainly wanted to create a supplement that was almost close enough to do a lot of the heavy lifting, but the heavy lifting actually comes from the work you need to do. This is going to give you the kickstart. So if you go to funksupplements.com, use the code podcast10. There's a video on there where I explain exactly everything that's in here, why it's so powerful. You're going to see all the testimonials of the guys who are using this, loving it, vitality, energy, boost, libido, testosterone. We naturally lose testosterone levels 1 to 2% every year after the age of 30. Right now, testosterone levels are 25% lower than they were, 20 years ago, and like 45 or 50% lower than they were in the 40s. Like, our testosterone levels are decreasing, even though we have the knowledge, we have the technology, we have the medical, advancements. There's no reason why our testosterone levels should be suppressed like this. Anyways, this is a kickstart. Head over to funksupplements.com, podcast 10. You're going to get your Alpha Max Test 3D. I'm telling you right now, my name's on it. So I'm not going to create something that's bullcrap. I'm going to create something that's going to help you and give you the kickstart and enhance your health. So head over there, funksupplements.com funksupplements.com, go to Alpha Max Test 3D, use the code podcast10, and I'm done. Let's get Mike Dolce in the room, and let's get started. Enjoy the podcast.
But thank you for having me on the show. And like we were saying before we started, how have we not done this before? Like, why aren't we hanging? Why didn't you come to Christmas last year at my house, bro? Why aren't we working out together? What the hell's going on here, right? But now we've started the relationship. I can't wait to grow it.
I can't either, man. I'm so excited. Okay, let's start off with, who is Mike Dolce? Give us your origin story from the time you started to almost where you're at today.
Well, origin story, I'll go back, because the man I am today is certainly not the little boy that I once was. And I think that's very important for all of us to understand. We all have our own backstory. So the most pivotal moment in my life I remember is an 8-year-old boy walking home from school, beautiful spring day. I walk into my house. It's eerily quiet as I walk through the house. Mom's not there. What's going on? I go, living room, dining room, into the kitchen. I mean, small, little old school, 50 by 100, little sliver lot in my house. Boom, walk through, back porch. I look out the back window. I see my mom running from the middle of the yard, running up the stairs, screaming, "Hold your father." I look down. My dad's laying on my deck in his own vomit, right? Well, next thing I know, ambulances and fire trucks, and my neighbor was a police officer, Joe Byrne, right? So he's the first one on the scene. My dad had a massive stroke. I'm an 8-year-old kid coming home from school looking to watch, G.I. Joe and Transformers, get a little snack. Dad's laying down, boom, massive stroke. And then it was a blur in many ways from there, in and out of hospital rooms, sitting in ERs. He's all hooked up to tubes and all this stuff. And then I'll just kind of take that forward. So he wound up being completely incapacitated in hospice. He wound up dying, cardiac event, and wound up passing away. But this is formative for me in a few ways now. And I always go back to this story because that defines my journey today. That I lost my father due to lifestyle related illness, right? He was a thoroughbred. He was a horse trainer. He was up early. He worked hard. He was a provider, but boy, he didn't take good care of himself. I mean, he'd buy a case of the old school Budweiser, boom. And I'd walk into the, liquor store with him. I remember those days, and he'd get a case of beer, and boy, it felt like we were there every night almost, right? He'd get chili cheesesteaks and bagels and cream cheese and just all like the quick grab and go food. But he was fit. He had abs. He had a good physique, right? He was fit. He's moving these horses around all day long. So I lose him to lifestyle related disease, and my family is just thrust into pain and poverty. Now it's 4 kids being raised by a single mom with no skills, no job. It was the old school days, right? I'm 48, old school, right? So she didn't have any work experience. She's cleaning houses for a couple dollars. My brothers and sisters, brother and sisters, we're just kind of alone fending for ourselves. And then I remember I walked into a 7-Eleven late at night just to grab a loaf of bread and some bologna slices and a gallon of milk to like feed the kids. And as we're standing there waiting to pay, I remember looking over and it was the old school Flex magazine just sitting on the magazine rack, right?
Of course.
And it was that iconic photo of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbu, black and white, leaning on the fence, Muscle Beach. And I was just like, I was hooked immediately. Now looking back as a grown man and introspective, I was looking for a father figure, right? I was enamored. These are the most masculine of men. Boom, right here. I could reach out, grab them, take them home with me, read every word, and then try to emulate that. And that was my journey. So at 8 years old, 9 years old, I'm downstairs in my basement lifting lifting weights, just doing whatever ridiculous little exercise. My Uncle Bob, he gave me his little weight bench, and everyone felt bad for me and for the family, right? And, a lot of handouts and a lot of, Christmas missed us, right? The old Biggie line. It was like, dude, it was that, So as we went through, I just became so focused on that muscle, building, and it became my way to escape. And I found wrestling. As 12-year-old boy, I wasn't tall. I was 114 pounds freshman year in high school, 5'4", 114. Not very coordinated. I had 0 prospects, but I had a fucking chip on my shoulder, man. Right? So I could here's something I could do. And I was strong and I was gritty and I had this chip on my shoulder and I was able to really excel inside that wrestling room. I was a 4-year varsity wrestler. I was a 4-year captain. As which you get a freshman who's a captain of teaching, telling seniors what to do. And that's kind of where this version of me, the coaching, kind of came in. Now, I mean, I can paint the picture more and more, but I'll kind of stop there. But that was the origin. That was the genesis to where I am now. And in a very real way, Funk, I see myself now. All I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to save that little boy and I'm trying to save his dad. That's what I'm doing in a very real way. And like the fighters and all that stuff. Yeah, that's all cool, man. It looks good in the photo and on the wall. But that does not motivate. It never motivated me. Like I am trying to save these families from getting torn apart by making these terrible lifestyle related decisions. And I know firsthand what the impact, what the cost is, a very true cost of that. I think, which is why you and why we're so damn passionate about the truth and not doing the Liver King BS and not selling the biohacking, widgets and gadgets and all the other BS, the mystification of fitness. We kind of keep doubling down on what actually works, what the real levers are to improve lifestyle outcomes.
Wow, that's incredible. Is your uncle still alive?
So Uncle Bob, he's in his mid 80s now. And, he's starting to deal with a little bit of cognitive decline. And, he's not quite the same as he once was, but God bless him. He used to take me out fishing. I mean, he really put his arm around me.
The reason why I asked that question is because it's funny how he gave you the weights, right? He gave you the weights. Like everyone's handing things down. Could have been a little whatever. It could have been a car set, could have been model set, but he's like, I'm gonna give this guy the weights because this is like, you know what I mean? It's like those little things that happen that when we look back on them, it's just like, oh, yeah, he gave me the weights. He took me fishing. He's kind of like, you know, in a sense, adding to not grooming, but adding to the formulation of who you are, right, and becoming that man that was missing in your life.
He did. He showed me what true masculinity is. It's soft, and it's kind, and it's patient, right? It's not that big gruff yell at the kid. It's no, like you know, we keep firm boundaries, but at the same time we teach through example, right? You know, and he was always there even when I didn't ask for, especially when I didn't ask. He was always there to make sure I was being looked after, you know? So it was, I mean, very, very special.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so now you're going to college. They're after now.
Yeah.
I know you UFC, all that stuff, but this is a massive part of the journey as far as I'm concerned, looking from the outside, because of everything you created and all of the things that you did for other people, right? Because it's not just about UFC. It's like what you're doing for other people. But how did you get into MMA? Let's go. How did you get MMA and the UFC, and how did that start?
Sure. So fast forward now, my high school wrestling career went pretty well. I went to a terrible school. I went to a Catholic school, right? Which, you know, was great for me. You know, 13 years Catholic school. I was actually, you know, voted most Christian-like, you know, in my graduating class. And, you know, that was really good. It's still special. I'm still talking about it, right?
Nice.
But, you know, I did really well. And at the time, I was the winningest wrestler in my school, which is, you know, it's nice. I wasn't the best wrestler in the state. I never won a state title, but I was pretty competitive. And I had some scholarship offers, even some Division I scholarship offers, which was awesome. And I would have to earn my way and earn my spot. And I was super excited for that. Now, I was out. I had my way out of just the poverty and the pain and the suffering, right? You know, it was just like, it was really, really hard way to go. And I had my way out. In my senior year, I blew out my shoulder.
Oh.
Blew out my shoulder. I tried to wrestle with it towards the end. It just really fell apart, you know, kind of in the state tournament at the end. I did okay. I like to think I would have done a little bit better. No excuses. And then it was a matter of, well, in order to move on to the college, it was like, well, we got to get the shoulder checked out. What's it going to be? You're going to need a year off. You're going to need a red shirt. I wasn't that good that they were willing to just wait for me.
Right.
It was like, hey, if you can get this fixed, you got a spot. If not, there's a couple other guys who are about as good as you, right? So we went through, and I worked with the orthopedic that was working with the New York Giants. I'm here in New Jersey, and I just couldn't get a consensus. I had 3 different doctors, 3 different opinions. I'm this kid just figuring out what to do. And I remember I was working at and managing a GNC, a General Nutrition Center, right? At that time, I mean, I was just grinding. Any job that was offered, I was taking. So I'm working there at the time, and my buddy, close friend, my best friend, right, my buddy Frank, he was going on to college, and he was going to study nutrition, clinical nutrition in college, which is what I wanted to do. Right. I wanted to do either, you know, probably like exercise physiology and clinical nutrition, major, minor. I was going to do both of those because I was just, that was who I was. And I remember his tuition was $25,000 a year. Wow. It's like, I mean, that might as well be $25 trillion, right? That's out, you know, not happening. And like, it was like the same week, almost to the day, I received a job offer that would pay me $25,455 per year. And I would actually get on the job training. I would get management training. There was a lot of, I would get, you know, there was a lot of resources at that time to grow and be on that, you know, leadership track. And I remember thinking about, I was like, well, my buddy's going to go $100,000 in debt. I can make $100,000 or more, have on-the-job training, real-world experience, be 4 years into a corporation. Man, I'm going to go this way. And I went that way. And I was, you know, I opened my personal training business at 17 years old, junior in high school. I was training like the local bank teller and just anyone, you know, because I was, at this point, I was now like 200 pounds and jacked. I was a wrestler. I grew. 5'10", you know, 200 pounds, you know, all ripped up and whatnot. And it was easy at that point to, you know, train clients and do the deal. So kept that job, moved forward. But then the yearning of what would have happened if I did wrestle. A year or two later, I was like, man, shoulders feeling better. That guy who just got All-American, well, shit, I beat him in high school. You know what I mean? It was like, I beat him in that tournament. Like, and good for him, right? He's like, man, I think I could have probably been okay at that level. Who knows, right? So that was like always in my head. And I was powerlifting at that point, which is another weight class oriented sport, because I was just trying to be competitive. And I powerlifted as a part of my rehab, right? I was doing heavy rehab, and I started then just getting more into the barbell stuff. And, I was like cross-trained as a power lifter in the off season of wrestling. Okay. That's kind of down here in New Jersey. It's what you do. I was training with guys like Rich Gaspari, right? Wow. So, Rich was a legend in this area, and I was a 600-pound squatter in high school. And you don't have many of those guys around. So it's like all the 500-600-pound squatters in the county would kind of get together on a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, depending on the gym. And we just have these marathon squat sessions or deadlifts. So like I kind of like got into that culture. And then the powerlifting. And then I walked into a jiu-jitsu school. It was Ray Martin's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu right here on Route 33 in Neptune, New Jersey, for anyone who might know it. But it was a Renzo Gracie affiliate. Right. Now, Renzo, I was watching on all the VHS back in the VHS days, all the VHS, the Pride days, right? And we were streaming it, on like those, the hot boxes we would call it, where you could get the free pay-per-views and we could kind of watch the pixelated fights over in Japan. And so, me and my buddies were all in watching that. And I walked into this jiu-jitsu school and I sat there and I watched the class, and Mr. Martin came over and he's like, hey, like, you want to give it a try? Like, come on back, give you a free class and just wear your sweatpants or whatever. Now, I was just a wrestler who was really strong. I hadn't wrestled in a while. I was a power lifter now, and I was big. I was like 240, right? Big, chubby, strong. Right. And I kind of beat everybody up in the room.
Okay.
Accidentally. Not in a mean way, but I was able to pretty much dominate strong wrestling position. I was athletic, right? So I could do real well. And Mr. Martin's like, hey, like, come on back. Yeah. Like, little tuition. We're going to waive the sign-up fee. It's a monthly thing. Cancel whenever. Like, I got an extra gi for you. Like, boom, it's going to fit. Like, big guy, it's going to fit. I was like the big guy. And I just got into that group. And then all of a sudden, I'm there I like almost forgot about powerlifting. And I was just all into jiu-jitsu. And then all the fighters, you get to know the guys on the mat. They started to gravitate towards me as a coach. Because I was a strength coach. I was a nutrition expert at that point. I had all these years of wrestling under my belt, now powerlifting. So I've been cutting weight and moving up and down weight classes for, 8 some odd years at that point, coaching other athletes to do so. And I just became an accidental coach. I was a student. I was a white belt. Then all of a sudden, I'm coaching the purples and the browns and the blacks. And then I started taking the train up to New York City and training with Renzo Gracie in his New York academy, the old academy, above the methadone clinic, right? In the early days, right? So I was training there with those guys, and then my eyes were just wide open. I was like, wow, and I was getting my ass kicked, right? I was big fish, little pond. I went up there. I was getting beat up by these tiny little 120-pound dudes just twisting me up. It was awesome. I loved it. Yeah. I couldn't get enough of it. I kept going back. And the same thing happened. All of a sudden, I became a coach on the mat where the athletes would start seeking me out. They have fights coming up, tournaments. And that back then, it was still NHB days. The late 90s, early 2000s, right? Like pre-Zuffa, pre-Dana White, Lorenzo Fertitta was right in that kind of the cusp of that. And I started working with them, coaching them. And then a chance meeting, we're at a fight card. I'm with some of the Team Renzo athletes. And I meet a bunch of Americans, because I'm hanging out with all these Brazilians, and they're fighting all these Japanese dudes, and they're all talking, and I don't understand most of what everyone's saying.
You're in the middle.
Right? I'm like, what are you talking about me? Like, what's going on here? What's a puta? I don't understand this, right? But then there's a bunch of Americans. So, and they're wrestlers. But we hit, it's like, 2 people wearing a Yankees jerseys at a Red Sox game.
Exactly.
All of a sudden, you just start buddying up and chit-chatting and having a conversation. Well, this was the guys from Team Quest, Randy Couture's Team Quest. Okay. Robert Follis was the head coach at that time, and it was just like they were the number 1 fight team in the world. And we hit it off. Then a few weeks later, I get a phone call from Robert. He invites me to come on out and spend a few days with them. They're running this 3-day training camp. Hey, come on out, bring a buddy, bring a training partner. We got a place. We'll put you up. Just come out, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Mm-hmm.
Get on the plane. I fly out there. And Funk, I tell you again, show up as a student. By the end of the first day, I'm actually teaching some of the modules.
So let me go back. When you say teach, are you saying strength and conditioning or just, okay, it's the strength and conditioning part of, because everyone comes to you for, hey, how do I get stronger doing this? How do I increase my cardio, all that stuff? So everyone's gravitating to you.
Everyone's gravitating to me on strength, conditioning, endurance, mobility, warm-ups, injury, rehab, prehab, nutrition, weight cutting, in-season, off. It's like any question that's not skill set related, they're firing it at me because, I mean, you got Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts on the mat, with like red stripe black belts. Like, they know every intricacy about every angle of the wrist on an arm bar. Like, so it's like, man, you just sit there and it's like, you just shut up and listen. But then once they start, all right, everybody's got that. It's like, well, damn, I'm 17 pounds over my weight class and I got to weigh in next week or this week. Or like, what do I do? And they're eating maybe like nachos. It's funny, the Team Quest guys, when I went out there, we all went out to eat. A couple of the guys were fighting. And there's a bar next door. Most of the guys go over, they order cheeseburger, French fries, and a beer. The guys who were fighting would order a cheeseburger, French fries, and a diet soda, and they take the bun off the burger. And I was like, what are you doing? Right. Like, oh, you know, kind of cutting carbs and cutting down. That's the way we kind of cut weight. We just basically eat the same food. We just eat less of it. Right. I was like, holy like, this is insanity. Yeah. And some of the guys, they would just they'd get whatever crap food, they would hold the food, they'd step on the scale, and they would just like take some of the weight of the plate off and be like, oh yeah, I'll lose a pound of water in practice so I can eat a pound of burger slop, whatever, nachos. I eat a pound of nachos right now because I'll lose a pound in practice. I'll just, ride it off, run it off. I was like, wow, you guys, like, as advanced as you are, skill set wise, toughness wise, nutritionally, you're very far behind. And at best, they were using a bodybuilding model. And a lot of the bodybuilders were in the periphery of MMA at that point. Guys like Ken Shamrock, he was kind of a bodybuilder mentality. He was an innovator. And he was doing better than most. And he had I forget who his guy was, but he had a bodybuilder who was like his strength coach. And there was a lot of that. And then there's a lot of like maybe like the football kind of strength coach systems that came in, but nobody was well suited to combat sports. And that's really where, so I went out there to Team Quest. I started coaching them. I go back home. I get a phone call from Robert Follis. He offers me the job as the head strength coach of Team Quest North. This is back in 2004, before Ultimate Fighter 1, when the UFC was still an unknown commodity.
Yeah.
And bro, I was all in. Like,
100%.
All in. At that point, I was like, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. Huge pay cut for my employment at that point. Turned to my girl, asked her to marry me. Like within 4 weeks, we got married, sold all of our shit, packed up my truck, drove across the country, and started. And then last little bit of this story is when they offered me a salary. It was $36K a year, to basically work unlimited hours. Like, I'm in. Sounds great, right? Sign me up. Day one, I get there. Robert calls me into the gym, 5 a.m. in the morning. Literally, we just drove across the country. We get to Oregon. And he says, hey, man, you're here. Great. Can you be here at 5 o'clock in the morning? I was like, oh, yeah, fuck, man. I just want to sleep. But yeah, of course. Brother, there is a mop bucket sitting in the middle of the gym. Now, this is a 60 by 60 pole barn, steel pole barn. It's basically just like an outhouse with wrestling mats. Robert says to me, he's like, listen, yeah, we don't have the budget actually to pay you the 36 we said, but we do have a job for you. We can pay you $8 an hour, 4 hours a day to, quote, open the gym, which means be the gym janitor. So from that day forward, I would work from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. cleaning the filthiest gym you ever saw. Really? And from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., I would coach 40 of the world's greatest athletes for free. And I did that. I built my reputation. I built my book of business. I created my brand from that environment. And then, hey, now here I'm talking to Funk Roberts.
This is incredible because all like that whole story, it makes sense though, because in 2004, nobody knew how to train for MMA, right? Like no one knew the strength and conditioning side. You're right. Everyone's, kind of piecemealing it. But here you come in, and as you're, as people are asking you questions and like, okay, how do I do, nutrition? How do I get ready for this fight? How do I increase my mobility, etc. Are you literally going back and researching and figuring things out and kind of like honing your clinical nutrition that you would have been doing at university, but you're getting like, this is like trial by fire, but learning right on the job, even better than your buddy that went to school.
Absolutely. And I had the academic background, though not classical. And I was the dude, I was like in high school, I was in the library. I wasn't going to parties, right? I was that guy. I was an honors math student. I was an honors science student. It came naturally to me, but I also worked really hard at it because I was so enamored with it. And especially the biological science. Yeah. I was just so deeply into that. I couldn't get enough of it. And I never stopped, right? So I'm even today, I'm pretty ravenous with education, self-education. I like to stress test my own theories. But when I started working with the athletes, and I, like you, we have so much practical experience, so much more so than what any student is learning right now in any college in the United States, because what we are doing today is 10 years ahead of what will show up in their textbooks. And this is what a lot of the academics don't understand. So I get a lot of the PhDs who are walking around at 15, 18, 20% body fat. They can't do a double body weight back squat. They can't run, a 7-minute mile. They're telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. When I've been doing it at the highest level with the world's greatest athletes for over 20 years. And what I say is I have these petri dishes that I have been running and conducting the scientific method in and on. And I've just been taking that conclusion to the next athlete, the next athlete, the next athlete for over 2 decades. So from an experiential perspective, Andy Galpin had said, not my words, and I'll take Andy at it. He said, you are a PhD.
100%.
He said, the vast amount of knowledge you have is incredible, far in excess of what any of my students have and likely will have, unless they can actually start working with athletes and clients in real time like you have. And if you think about the amount of hours we have, that we're truly diligent. And it's not like, we're not just some in-gym PT, rep counter, 3 sets, 10 repetitions, and hey, yeah, your ass looks good, kind of go on, right? I call those, fitness bartenders. They're just there for some cash. It's a 2-year turn and burn, and hey, whatever, that's fine. We are experts. We are masters of the craft. This is all we do. It's what we do. It's 24 hours a day. This is what we think about. Right? Our phones are loaded with our clients and communications and feedback and photos and questions and exchanges and data, right? So we're constantly analyzing and managing the data. And this is what the quote, show me the science, like the Lane Norton types of the world. They hide behind science because their fragile egos don't allow them to admit they don't have the knowledge and the experience that we have. And there is so much information that is not taught in the schoolroom that is clearly vetted in the real world, in the gyms and on the stage and, wherever else on the scale, that is clearly vetted. And that's one of the unfortunate things. I wish that there was more, intellectual interplay between the different vantage points for the betterment of the community. And, it's a disservice to the person listening right now, to the average person who's just trying to look better, feel better, live better, because they're being told it's wrong. They're being told to go out and just eat all the synthetics. Just calorie count, that's all that matters. Soda, diet soda, that's fine. You can have a little bit of alcohol as long as it fits your macros, all that stuff. It's like, man, that's not an honest take. You have to tell the truth. Water is better than Diet Coke. Diet Coke is not so much better than regular Coke. depending on the parameter you're simply trying to measure. Then we could easily argue back and forth on that. But no one can argue that water is not better. So then we just go to that. And this is where a lot of the academics, I think, they jump the shark and they fall off message. And that's at their own detriment
100%.
long term.
Yeah, so I have coaching calls. So when I moved from strength and conditioning for fighters to men over 40, based on like a story that happened to me, I went all deep. And one of the things for me, like this is why I love what you do, and the fact that you have the depth, right? Because it's about the depth of what you know and how you can take all of that knowledge and the depth and the breadth and apply it to real results, right? Like we're going to talk about the weight cutting in a second, but real results. So for me, it was about, okay, I can do all of this, but I got to get real results. And over the last 6-7 years, if you go to we have a proof page that's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s that, from obviously the before and afters, but like better cholesterol, their, testosterone naturally increasing, all of the things, all the lifestyle things, right? So I preach the same thing over and over again, like, and then you get new people coming in on the, during our coaching calls or whatever. And of course I don't judge because I know what's out there. We know what's out there. So like, it's all of this, and this person said this. And all I have to do is just, okay, let's break it down. Why this is here. We're over 40, man. So the margin for error is here now. We can't freaking eat and do the things we used to do. And this is why you're eating healthy fats, because of the cholesterol. It's going to up with testosterone. This is why you're like, when you start to give them the knowledge, right? So they know, oh yeah, that's right. I have to have a source of fruits or vegetables on my plate because it's micronutrients. And so when they start to know that and apply it, this is why I have to do mobility and recovery and yoga, or else I'm going to get injured because I can't do 3 or 4 workouts a week if I don't have that in place. Like all of those things. And then it's not sexy. And I've had others come at me like, and challenge. And it's just like, man, like you're looking at that person who just turned 40 and taking what they were doing from here back when they were in their 30s. Oh, I'm 40 now, so let me go after men over 40, and I'm going to use the same knowledge I had here without any, and then all I have to do is just scroll down the page and show them the results. And it's not even me. I'm just giving these guys the tools. But that's the key. It's like, when you get results over and over and over and over again, and like you said, tweak and take, okay, this is not, okay, maybe this person, okay, this is this, maybe I have to change this up a little bit, but I mean, it's still working. These guys are still, 3 years later, they're still doing the same program and they're still going, not getting injured. It's like, there's nothing beats that. No freaking charlatan, no anything beats that. And yes, that's unfortunate for us because we're going to always have to battle that because people don't know all of that. But I applaud you so much for that, because it's the knowledge and all of that is great, but the results, man, like talk about the weight cut results. We were having this conversation the other day. Because Angela and I, we work with the UFC. We do fight. We're the blue shirts for the UFC.
Yes. Yep.
Just in Australia and Canada and New Zealand. So we're on that team. We've been up for like 6-7 years, and nothing frustrates us more than when fighters miss weight. Even if all week they get there, I take their weight. Okay, this is what you are. You gonna be okay? All week, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? Wednesday, how's it going? Thursday, you good? Still miss weight. And even on the day when we put them on the scale, okay, you got to go back and try to cut the last. You got an hour. No, I'm good. Dude, you got an hour to cut weight. Just go back and it's so frustrating. So talk to us about how you became the greatest nutritionist in MMA on ever, player, probably ever.
I appreciate that.
Oh.
And when I sit down with an athlete in the very beginning, I would say to them very clearly, my goal is not for you to be a world champion. My goal is not for you to win this fight. My goal is not for you to make weight. My goal is for the 80-year-old version of you to tell your great-grandchildren, about the time you made weight, won the fight, and became a world champion.
Wow.
So as long as we understand the hierarchy of priorities here, we're going to have a great relationship. And if that is not what you are signing up for, I'm not your coach. I'm not the guy. Because Lord knows we can take some pretty drastic measures and we can force someone across the finish line first, or we can dry them out and get them on the scale on weight. But we are jeopardizing that 80-year-old version of themselves and that story that they can tell their great-grandchildren. And I have never taken a risk that would allow that. And because of that, I was able to deliver the healthiest possible organisms to the scale so they could compete at the very best version of themselves and they could realize the upper threshold of their potential. So that was always the way I looked at it. But going back, it's my father, right? I'm now empowered with the responsibility of this person's health. And that weighs to this day, and in those moments weighed very heavily on me because I was uniquely aware of how dangerous combat sports is, weight cutting is. In that type of conversation, everything I did had to be perfect. There was no room for almost or good enough, not so bad. Everything had to be perfect. Oftentimes, in spite of the athlete's natural tendencies, right? So I wasn't just playing, weight management coach or nutritionist or strength coach. I was playing the role of psychologist, of therapist, of marriage counselor, of manager, of agent, of PR director, of HR administrator. There was so many hats I had to wear in order to shelter the athlete from all of the aspects that competing, especially at this level, at that highest level. Yeah. There's so much more that goes into it. Like the chicken and broccoli is the least of it. So, and it was because I had such vast experience, I've been doing it for, I was working with UFC athletes before Dana White was. That's how long I was involved in the game back in the no holds barred, the NHB, the open hand slap fighting in Pancrase days. Right. So my lineage runs deep and I was able to grow with the sport. And I like to say, I always felt like I was surfing the cresting wave in MMA when a lot of the critics and pundits and even some of my peers, well, boy, they were still sitting on the beach, kind of like sunning themselves, trying to figure out what's going on out there in the ocean. And I was always riding that cresting wave. And that's just the learning, the experience of this very dangerous environment, right? So I think I attained a level of prominence and notoriety because of the success of my athletes. I'm the only coach in MMA history with a career, as long as mine, a 25 plus year career that has never had an athlete ever miss weight at the high level. And there's a lot of other, individuals who've been, near my level and they have massive, horrible failures. Athletes getting sent to the hospital, athletes almost dying, pulled from cards. It's never happened under our watch. And more than that, I was working with the worst of the best, meaning the worst weight cutting, mishaps of the best athletes. The UFC and the promoters would send to me. I'm like Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction.
Right, the cleaner.
That's the way I felt like. They would bring me in for their worst possible case. And I always said, hey, my job is to bring Dana and Lorenzo a bag of money. Because that's what this athlete is. Right? They got $5, $10, $20 million wrapped up into a marketing campaign on a fight card that's going to make $50, $60, $80 million, right? If the main event, if the athlete, if the co-main event, if the number one contender misses weight, that's going to cost them tens of millions of dollars. Businessman, I understand. It's going to cost them tens of millions of dollars. Today, And the opportunity cost of that weight miss, the inability to make future matchups, build narratives and storylines, I understood that. So again, this is why I put so much pressure on myself, and I never diluted my service. Now, at certain points in my career, I could have worked with every athlete in the UFC.
Yeah.
I could have just started, apprenticing all these little coaches like some of the other dudes in the game did.
Yeah.
And their failure rate was massive. I worked with 5 athletes at a time, no more, because 5 athletes compete 3 times per year. So that's 15 fight weeks I'm away from the house. And then I would travel with the athlete one other week, usually 3 days in the beginning of camp, 3 days in the middle of camp, and then full fight week, right?
Right.
So that's 30 weeks I was away from my own home, of my wife and my bed. 30 out of 52 weeks, I was definitely going to be on the road. And then there's other little things here and there, little one-offs and little help and maybe an appearance here or there, like all that stuff. So in 2012, 13, and 14, I was able to prove by receipts to my accountant I was on the road over 280 days.
Wow.
And those are, now, Lord knows how many days I just a little
Forgot.
flight here and there, right? Maybe closer to 300. So, like, that's a level of commitment that's rather rare. And it's a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. I get to the city that usually the day before the athlete did. I get there early. I get all the groceries. I get everything stocked up. I'd make sure the car is ready. I'd talk to the communications director. Their interviews are lined up. I'd negotiate wake up times and, maybe hair and makeup. No, we're not going to go to them. They got to come to us, or they're going to do it in the car. Like, I'd be doing all that stuff that most strength coaches, nutrition coaches, they're at the bar,
Yeah.
They're ordering pizza, they're eating wings, they're fucking on their Tinder, literally trying to just hook up in a new city. Where for me, this like Vitor Belfort had said, he's like, you're not a coach. He said, you're like a missionary of health. Vitor's a very religious young man, and that's the way he had seen me and what I do. And that, because I think my Christian background, that really kind of resonated. And I was like, yeah, like I accept that. I would never say that, but I accept that from a man like him who's so deeply religious. And I think in a big way that was able to help me attain a level of respect in the industry because of the body of my work, but also the integrity with which I performed it. And that was the most important thing to me. And I always said, if anyone's going to get screwed in a relationship, it's going to be me. Like, I'm going to be the one who, Lord knows I've been screwed a lot, 100%. But it's always going to be me, because I will never screw anyone. I will always over deliver on whatever promise I make, always 100% of the time. And I believe I always have.
2 things. Give us, because for those who are listening, give us 5 of the fighters that you've worked with. 5.
Well, Ronda Rousey, probably the greatest female MMA fighter, of a combat athlete of all time, I would say, because of what she did and when she did it. Chael Sonnen, who's very well, might be the most notable. I mean, Chael transcends the industry. One of my dear friends, I knew him since 2004 at Team Quest, so we're 20 years or so ago. Vitor Belfort, who is Michael Jordan in Brazil. Vitor Belfort stopped to use a gas station restroom on a 4-lane highway in Brazil one time. We're out there. Brother, 4 lanes of traffic stopped, and he was mobbed like Jesus Christ had come down to planet Earth. It was one of the most insane things I had ever seen. Randy Couture, Randy hired me back in 2004 as the head strength coach of Team Quest. So many great, Quentin Rampage Jackson, who's one of my favorite athletes of all time and just like so iconic back in the Pride days. You got Thiago Alves here, who's, very famously like one of the most devastating athletes in the UFC, who could never make weight, and he made weight every single time. Johnny Hendricks, and I'm going, won the UFC world title, which genetic, that's probably my proudest work, is helping Johnny achieve that goal for his family. Right? He didn't care. Johnny doesn't care about the money. He just cared about I'm better than that man. I can beat that man. That
Mm.
was all. I can be a world champion. And I remember just the celebration afterwards, and I hugged his father and I said, Kevin, you raised a world champion. And I think I was the first one to say that to him, and he started to cry. A very manly man,
Yeah.
but he started to cry the tears of a man who was proud of his boy, as one of the most beautiful moments in my career, right there.
Imagine, like, as fathers here, if you're listening, I mean, that, I'm just getting goosebumps. That is one of there's so many different things that in life for your kids that will happen that will make you cry. If you have a daughter, she gets married, but that, like, raising someone who has been able to reach the pinnacle of whatever it is, whether it's sport or what have you, it's like, man, that's like, I did something right, man. I did something, it's like, you don't even realize, you just figure like, oh, I'm just doing what a father would do. But believe me, brothers out there, fathers don't do what a lot of fathers don't do what we need to be able to do is provide, protect, procreate, and all of those things. I mean, that's our alpha purpose, but we'll get to that in a second. The
Amen.
second thing that I love is you turn down people when you were put in a situation where they weren't going to lose. It would be so difficult for them to cut weight. They came to you last second. I remember hearing that story. May have happened a couple times because I only heard that one or two times actually.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because this is another reason why it's like you could have taken all this money and, like, all right, I'll do it. I'll say, I can't guarantee you, but I'll do it. I'll do it. Or you could go, listen, with 1 day notice or whatever it is, it's not happening. So I'm not going to do this, right? I'm not going to put yourself or that fighter at jeopardy under your watch.
Yeah. There was multiple instances where I was contacted to work with fighters in MMA, but also in boxing, right? Because we started to transcend combat sports, and I was getting a lot of other combat athletes that were interested, of course. And I won't name the athlete, but they came to me twice, and on two separate occasions, they had offered me short notice. They wanted to bring me in short notice. And I said, listen, I don't do short notice work. I want to really make sure we have a baseline. I want to work with you for at least 8 weeks. I want to make sure that everything is working properly. It takes me time to get to know you. So I'll cheer for you. You can ask me any questions, no charge, but I cannot commit to working together. Say, hey, what's your price? Now, it's not a negotiation. There's always a price. Like, I'm not negotiating. And they had wound up offering me up to $50,000 because this is a high level athlete, right? It's a small percentage of their purse. And they're like, and no fault. He's in a bad way, a lot of issues going on. Do the best you can. If he misses weight, doesn't happen, not your fault. We'll say it's not your fault. I appreciate that. Thank you. I said, but no. And at that point, this athlete, it wasn't about the money at all. I was not morally aligned with this individual.
I know.
And for me, that's a big, like, I'm not morally aligned. There's a behind the scenes backstory. He lives a life very different than the life I aspire to live, ethically, morally, integrity issues. Like, there's a lot of that stuff. And I said, I don't believe that we will be a good fit. I say, we're completely different people. There's a lot of misalignment here, and it's not a good situation. Out of protection to you and your athlete, we will not be a good fit. And I think they had never heard no before,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they wound up and they hired somebody else, maybe the second best individual. And it was a shit show for everybody involved. The athlete wound up, having a terrible time. And there was, a lot of extracurricular issues that came out afterwards. And in a way, I felt like, thank God I listened to my gut and I avoided that the devil's money, because I felt like they were looking for a fall guy.
Totally.
They were looking to pay off a lackey more than anything.
Totally.
And shift the blame, right? So, I mean, that's one issue. And there's quite a few other issues where it was just simply like, you know what? We don't click.
Yeah.
We don't click, and it's the kind of the business saying, it's, judge people by the way they treat the waiter. And a lot of these athletes, a lot of these individuals, they treat the waiter terribly. And they think that they're more important than the waiter, which is a shame. I'm the guy who was mopping the mats and cleaning
Right.
the toilets,
Right.
right? So like I still in a very real way, I still have that humility in all the things that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm here to serve, right? So like to put yourself in that level of superiority or entitlement over another human being who's doing their role,
Mm-hmm.
providing their service to the community, it's shameful. So I've turned down quite a few, more than my accountant would appreciate. But I've always I've always been proud of my decisions. I've always been
Sure.
able to look my wife and my daughters in the eye, look myself in the mirror at the end of the day. And I think that moral alignment and the people you surround yourself with matter. And the last piece is like when I sign on, I am so emotionally engaged.
Right.
This is not a template to me. Like if we work together, I'm in. Like I'm your brother. Like I'm your brother. I'm your uncle. Like whatever that I am 100% in for the rest of your life. All I want is for you to succeed and for everyone around you to succeed and be healthy and happy and just like enjoy this infinite success. So like I have to be morally aligned to do what I do at the level that I hold myself to.
That's incredible. There's very few people out there like you that have that mindset at your level of success, winning awards, training the greatest athletes on the planet, starting Dolce Diet and that whole business, writing the book, and still being able to have that humility and still be consistent. This is why, I always gravitate towards you and all the things that you do and what you say is because it's always been consistent. Like I heard you say something the other day about weight cutting, I believe, and it was something that I'd also done in the past in regards to like, and my wife is the same way. She's also a fighter and former bodybuilder, but it's like no. When you're weight cutting, your weight cut starts at the beginning of training camp. Like you're walking around pretty much. Like we shouldn't have to cut barely anything during weight like that. We've always had that, and I remember when I helped somebody on a smaller level. And he was a pound. He goes, I was a pound and a half under, but I felt stronger than ever. I destroyed the guy. He was supposed to lose to this person, but he actually picked him up, threw him down, destroyed him, and I think it was for a belt out in Calgary. But he couldn't believe that because he was a little bit nervous stepping on the scale, being a pound and a half under and under the guy that he was fighting. But then he's just like, man, I felt like I was throwing this guy around. It's like, yeah, because you were on weight literally from the beginning, right? Like we implemented that throughout so you learned how to train at that weight. You learned how to, you know what I mean? So you said that the other day, I believe. You said something about that after a couple of weight misses the other day, right?
I'm sure that I did. It's because it's very in line with
Yeah.
what we know to be true. And I call it it's the 52-week weight cut.
Right.
52 weeks out, if you're a professional athlete, 52 weeks out of the year, you have to be at your optimal weight, right? And I say you look at Kobe. What made Kobe great? What made Tom Brady great? What made Gretzky great? When we talk about the greats, what made them great? Did they take an off season off and get fat? Did Kobe just not pick up the basketball for a few months? When you look at combat athletes, and I know that these athletes, they train hard for 8 weeks and then they party hard for 8 weeks. That is not a professional to me.
Yeah.
You are a 52-week-a-year professional or you are a hobbyist. That's why a lot of these athletes, they go and they do okay and then they burn out. Then they complain that they don't get paid enough.
Right.
Like BS. They're getting in one night what a craftsman makes an entire year, what a laborer, what a contractor, what a woodsman, what an apprentice on an electric truck, right? They're making, 35, 40, 45 a year to work 8, 10, 12-hour days. You get an athlete who's making 15, 15, 20, and 20 for one night. And they think they deserve more than that. They're getting paid far in excess of what their true worth is. And this is an issue that a lot of them have, and it's reflected in their lifestyle.
Yes.
Now, the athlete like a George St. Pierre, who 52 weeks out of the year, I mean, you look at George today, he's in fight shape.
Still.
He's retired. He doesn't even he can now have the belly. He can't, because that's the way he's wired. Very few of these combat athletes live like that. Bernard Hopkins, he was one of those guys. When he got out of jail, he really went all in on boxing. And one of the greatest interviews he had ever said, he had just won some big fight world title. And the co-main guy, I forget the names now, co-main guy won his fight too, big fight. Bernard's walking through the casino on his way out. The co-main event guy is partying, getting drunk at the tables and whatnot. He's like, oh, B-Hop, come here, have a drink, partying. Hopkins like, no, man, I got a fight to train for. He's like, well, you just won. He's like, I got my next fight to train for. No. I'm going home, I'm going to bed. Boom, like, win, big win, fight night, boom. All right, what's next? Incredible. I gotta go sleep. I gotta deal with the inflammation. I gotta deal with the injuries. I gotta get my body right, get my sleep again. Wake up tomorrow, we're back at it. That's why, I mean, for people who don't know, Bernard Hopkins, he was one of the most dominant, was he a middleweight, right? 160. Yeah. One of the most dominant world champions of his time, of all time. When you look at really what he was able to do as an older gentleman, beating up the young bucks. It's that mentality that a lot of these athletes don't have, that I think you and I, we both know that is the true way to be successful. Okay. To actually beat the athletes with better genetics and better coaching, better environment, right? You almost kind of like the Dorian Yates, to use that analogy. Dorian kept that big chip on his shoulder, right? Just trudging back and forth through the snow to Temple Gym to dominate the world of bodybuilding for 6 straight years. Beating Flex Wheeler and Kevin Levrone, like, come on now. Like, those guys will blow him out of the water genetically.
Right.
But they're partying, right? Kevin's taking time off, getting fat and skinny. Flex is out there doing his LA thing, right? So that whole mentality, these are evergreen principles. So it's like, I think you and I like to say, it's like, man, I didn't invent nutrition. I just pointed at it. Like, hey, that's the stuff that works right there, guys. Kind of like, Sir Isaac Newton didn't invent gravity. Yeah. He just pointed at, like, oh, look at, I dropped the apple, it falls to the earth. Holy sh! Look at this. Let's focus on this. Let's do this. And nutritionally speaking, lifestyle speaking, I think it's so clear and obvious when you really step back and you just look at the evergreen principles. I know a little long-winded answer, kind of like, but on that topic, that hopefully it gives people context when they're walking through their day and they go through the decision-making matrix of, what should I eat? What should I not eat? When should I go to bed? Should I stay up? When should I wake up? When should I hit the snooze? How hard should I train? Should I take the day off? It's all a part of that decision-making matrix that we already know the right answer, right? But we'll let maybe the Dave Aspreys and the whoever, the Ben Greenfields, I don't know, the Liver Kings and the Paul Saladinos, we'll let them with their charisma kind of mix it up and confuse us so they can sell us the next widget.
So you said something absolutely incredible about the athlete and that 52 a week. How does that transfer over to the guy in their 40s, 50s, 60s, the father in their 40, 50, 60, the husband who, listening to this, when you said that, said, well, I'm not an athlete, so I understand for them, they're making all this money, but I got a job, I got a wife, I got a house, I got to put food on the table, I got a kid. How do those guys develop that mentality?
Such a great question. I like to say, you are an athlete. You are the everyday athlete. There's no trophy waiting for me at the end of the week, the month, the year. I'm not a part of any organized sport. I'm not on a team. There's no medal. Nobody's timing me, right? Oh, but that's your job. I don't do it because it's my job. There's a lot of fat and out of shape coaches out there right now. I can hide behind my computer and wear a zip-up hoodie and pretend like I'm a big buff dude, right? Easily. So no, it's not my job either, right? Just like the people out there, it is our responsibility, especially, let's talk to the men.
Yes.
As men, it is our responsibility to be the protectors and the providers. Amen, brother. Yeah. And you cannot do that in an effeminate body. You cannot do that in a weak body, because a weak body is indicative of a weak mind. And we must push ourselves constantly to be the next best version of ourselves. So what I tell my community is, every morning when your eyes open, the scoreboard resets to 0. I do not care what you did yesterday. Today is the only day that matters, and the next decision is the only decision that matters. So what will you do now, in this moment? Will I choose at 5:59 a.m. to swing my feet over the side of the bed, put them on the floor, stand up, and march into my day? Or will I hit snooze? Like, will I choose effeminacy or masculinity? What will be my choice? Will I choose? And I like this analogy also. You and all the loved ones, you know, all the people you love, you are staying in a remote cabin, 100 miles from civilization. And it's going to be 40 below tonight, and it is snowing outside. The weather conditions are terrible, and you can hear the howls of the wolves just off in the distance. And you look over at that fireplace and there's one log of wood. What are you going to do? Are you going to put on your fucking boots, grab the axe, march out into the cold of night and swing the fucking axe to bring the wood back into the house to heat your family, your loved ones? Or are you going to send your wife out there to do it? Are you going to wait for another man to go out there and take care of you? This is the energy we have to have in all the things that we do. Now, unfortunately, most of us are cursed to be in modern society where we don't have to swing an axe to feed and heat our family anymore, where we can order Instacart, we can press some buttons on this little gadget and get all sorts of immediate gratification. So we then must force ourselves to lean into the things that are hard. And what is hard though? Is it hard for me to say no to alcohol? Is that hard? It's hard for some people. Is it hard for me to say, hey, I have to eat 4 meals today? What will those meals be? Let me make sure those are planned, those are prepared, so I am ready to eat those when I'm supposed to eat those, because I'm accountable to my health, so I can be accountable to my wife, to my children, to my family, to my community, like to the world as a whole. So like, to the man out there who's like, oh man, it doesn't really matter, I can get away with it, I'm doing okay, I got a little bit of money in the bank. No, bullshit. Bullshit. You have to hold yourself to a higher standard. You have to lead your family by example. You have to exert your authority over your family so they will lead, they will be led by you. And you can only do that through actions, not through words. Like, I lead my family through my actions. Right? So when I ask them to do something, they do it without question. Not because I'm a dictator, because they respect the amount of work I put into providing and protecting for them. Because I've done far more for them than I'm asking them to do simply for themselves. That's the energy we need. But our own physicality. Man, when I walk down the street with my family, my head's on a swivel. I'm ready. This is a crazy world we live in, and if you think otherwise, you are an effeminate male waiting for another man to come and protect you. You have to be the one to protect them and be physically ready. What if your wife falls down and she needs to be picked up and carried? What if your child falls down? They need to be picked up and carried. What are you going to do? Oh, my back hurts. I gotta stretch out first. I have to do my exercises first. That's the shit you should be doing 3 times a day at 5 a.m., at 12 p.m., at 5 p.m. You should be doing that every single day now, because it's your responsibility to do so, to be in perfect working condition, to not have the big belly and the hyperlipidemia, high cholesterol, hardening of the arteries, high PSA or HbA1c or fasting glucose, because now you're going to be a liability to your family 5, 10, 20 years from now. And shame on you for putting them through that pain, because you're too damn lazy today to say no to the slice of pizza or the beer or with a hot dog or whatever else it might be. So it's like, that's what I would say to that guy that's like, that's not really, I'm not an athlete. No, bullshit. Like, you're more important than the athlete. And every one of these athletes, they have wives. They have children, they have homes, they have mortgages, they have annoying family members and neighbors' dogs that's barking, and the landscaper that shows up too early, just like the rest of us, a boss who doesn't pay them enough, right? They have the same shit we do, but some of them are able to challenge it or channel that energy into a productive athletic activity, as every one of us must be able to.
Wow. Amen to that, brother. Amen. Man, the other day, a couple of years ago, I was looking across the street, and my neighbor and his wife had just bought a big, huge armoire, right? And they have to take it up the stairs because where we live, the stairs, you got to go up a couple levels. So I see them struggling. The wife's a little bit bigger. He's a small guy, out of shape, very out of shape, and they're struggling. Now I don't judge anybody. I don't judge. I'm just action Jackson. So I just left. I got up, went downstairs, said, "Hey, let me help you, And he's at the bottom. So it's her and I pushing that up, not even him. But I could see her face, look the way she was looking at him. And then after I was done, I'm like, "Hey, man, no problem, no problem." Just try, because I could see already there was a very big disappointment in her and in him, right? Same thing happened when the couple were trying to push their mattress to the next house because they're moving from that house to that house. Once again, I see them struggle. Oh, I'm going to go out. I can see they're struggling, they're literally almost dragging on the ground. Oh, hold on, let me grab this for you. Here, let me take this. It's those things that I don't care to do because that's just who I am. And, there's many men that are going to need that help, but you don't want to be that guy. You do not want to be, because I saw their face and I see the way they look at me these days. They look at me a little bit different, like a little bit shameful, but I try to reassure them, don't worry, man. Like, hey, we're all good. We're here, right? But that was a lesson for them. You know what I mean? Those type of things was a lesson. And you don't want to be that guy.
No, it's hard, and I feel bad. So I'm a slightly older dad, right? I'm 48. My youngest is 7 years old. So I got younger kids,
Right.
about 10 years old. I'm about 10 years older than the other dads, let's say.
Right.
So I'm doing a lot of things, and there's these like early, mid 30-year-old guys and families with their kids, gymnastics and swimming pool and all this stuff. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, these kids have the same physique as these dads. Right?
Yeah.
These 4, 5, 6-year-old little kids in the pool with the soft bodies, no muscle, big bellies, hips hanging out. I'm like, it's unacceptable to see this. And I feel, I'm not being mean. I feel bad for these guys because they have gotten so soft. They've allowed themselves to be so soft. And that is very hard to shake because now they have to start leaning into the harder aspects of masculinity, which is delayed gratification, right? It's saying no more than you say yes. It's doing the hard things. It's leaning into the suffering, right? And embracing it, wanting it. And when I say the suffering, I don't mean some masochist is beating ourselves and bleeding. I mean waking up when it's cold outside and going for a walk. I mean doing some body weight squats, right? Because that's hard for a lot of people. And if you say it's not, show me how many people actually do that in their day. And I'll tell you, 77% of the adult population in North America is either overweight or obese. So we know what the stats say. So when we see these guys who are effeminate, and I say that intentionally, they are effeminate. They are emasculated when they see men like you, men like me walking around. Because it makes them feel inferior, and I will say, yes, they are inferior. Not because of their physicality, it's because of their mentality. The physicality is a representation of the mentality, right? Yep. You don't have to be a big, buff muscle man walking around, but buddy, you better be able to move that armoire. You better be able to move the bed, right? You better be able to pick up the stuff and move the stuff. Like, you better be able to do all the things necessary, especially when you have a woman. Because that your woman needs to look at you like, my man's got me. I'm safe with him. That, you want to talk about what is masculinity, and you say procreate, exactly. So that's building a family and being the head of household, as I would take your definition. What does that mean? We are the wall, right? I use the term fortress. Everything I love is in that fortress behind me. I am the fucking wall here. I am the one thing that they have to try and get through, and you are not getting through me, no matter what that is. From an intellectual perspective, business, right? Whatever it is, finances, brute, sheer force and violence. Let's go, motherfucker. Like, we are prepared and ready for whatever the world throws at us. Whatever shows up in the mail, I got this shit. It's handled. My accountant, my lawyer, whatever, done. We got this. It's handled. I'm not worried about it. Everything's done. Everything's tight, right? That's the fortress. Everything is tight, especially our physicality. And that's, to your point, I feel bad for those guys. And I see those guys all the time. And if anyone's listening right now, man, follow this man right here. Do what he says, because he will lead you out of that desperation, that hopelessness feeling, that emasculated, presence that you have. One decision and it's gone. As soon as you start marching forward, it's gone. Yeah. Right? And that's the beautiful thing, right? You don't have to be in the front of the line. You just have to be in line. You have to be on the road, because we will hold your hand. Like, we will drag you, pull you, carry you. As long as you want to move forward with us, we're going. Like, and that's what a lot of guys, they don't get. Yeah. They don't want to, they're scared of the tough guys. Like, man, most of the tough guys are the sweetest humans.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Right? And we spent our whole lives getting our asses kicked. So we have this level of humility, and we understand how it feels to be the little guy in the room, the new guy in the room, the slowest, the weakest, the least skilled in the room. And man, I want to make him tough. I want to build him now to be my training partner, to make me better. So it's like that steel temper steel, metaphor. That's what a lot of this is. So finding, a mentor like Funk over here and following his system, I cannot say enough for men, especially modern men, to get into that, because we don't have the culture anymore. We don't have the tribes. We don't have the rite of passage that younger men, once had. We're not pushed out into the world anymore. We're encouraged by single mother households to stay in the nest. Exactly.
Coddled, man. Unbelievable. So before we I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. I'm going to throw out a couple of things. I just want you to go.
Love it.
Before that, testosterone. I got a question the other day. Someone sent me a message, because I sent a message out about our alpha zone, which is, we try to get our men 600 nanograms per deciliter or over, with 15% body fat or less. That's the alpha zone. They need the North Star. They need to know where to get to, right?
Yep.
So I sent a message about that. We highlighted 8 guys who just did that, and 50, 60, 70. And I got a message telling people to increase their testosterone levels over 300 nanograms per deciliter is misinformation. Don't you know that when you increase your testosterone, you increase your chances of prostate cancer, stroke, heart disease? Tell me about that.
They're absolutely wrong. They're not looking at any of the clinical research where there is overwhelming data to support optimal testosterone levels being directly correlated with longer lifespans. So the whole increase of PSA is false within limits, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you're running around at 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 nanograms per deciliter, hey, now you are at a supra physiological level. You want to be in that sweet spot of maybe 600 to 1,200. Mm-hmm. We like to see our guys somewhere like 800 to 1,000, but it's in that zone to be optimal. And all we say is, you want to feel today the way you did at 25, and we say forever 25. That's the goal.
Okay.
Forever 25 is where we want to be. No better. We're not trying to be Phil Heath or Mr. Olympia, right? No judging, but I wouldn't support or suggest that. Right. We just want you to be the healthiest and fittest version of yourself, while always making sure you're getting comprehensive blood work, you're understanding what your levels are, you're building baselines, and then you're competing to improve your baseline lab results. So if you are focused on managing the metrics, doing everything in your life to ensure you are optimizing every measurable aspect of your health, you can only dramatically improve your health. So, I speak to a lot of guys also, and they're walking around, and what we say is the low water mark is 500. If you are 500 nanograms per deciliter, It doesn't mean you do need medical intervention. It means now you're in that red zone where we got to look at lifestyle.
Yeah.
We got to take a deep, now let's look at lifestyle. Let's really look at any sort of deficiencies, imbalances. Look at the nutrition, look at your levels of stress. Like what's your sleep? Like we look at the totality of the picture. We try and fix everything we can. We rerun labs again. Is there an improvement? Oh shit. You added, you're up at 550. You're moving in the right direction. Hey, up to you, but you can wait if you want to, or that's up to you. Slowly but surely. But if like you're below 500, you're low.
100%.
You're not at your best. And you want to be at your best because goddamn, we're not here that long. Right? 80 spins, 90 spins around the sun if we're lucky.
Yeah.
If you put it like that, we're not here that fucking long. I've already burnt 48 of those.
I just burned 55, so.
You know what I'm saying? So like, damn, you want to just drag your dick through the sand for the next 20 years? God forbid you dragged it for the last 10, 15? Less of a man, less of a husband, less of a community member, just less. No, man, we got to be our best, especially when I'm a huge advocate of medical supervision and diagnostics. I get my blood work done like every 2 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I just love the data and I'm always tweaking things. Right. So I just enjoy it. I get a pretty good discount, which is nice. Right. So I can save a couple bucks. I get it done a little bit more often. But I'm always competing with my labs. And even if that means like, hey, let me see what happens if I can go to bed 15 minutes early for the next 6 weeks. What is that going to do to my cortisol levels? What is that going to do to my IGF-1 levels? What is that going to do to my body fat percentage if I make no different other change and I get just a little bit more deep sleep? What's going to happen there? Like, that's kind of, while we're here, why not? Watching Netflix for 15 more minutes isn't going to help me, right? It's going to be there tomorrow night, so.
Love it. Processed foods.
Garbage. Stay away from them 100%. Hyper palatable, highly processed foods are directly associated with 160% increase in total calories consumed. Think about that. So, and hyper palatable foods, I'm kind of taking processed and adding the hyper palatable. So hyper palatable foods are chemically crafted by research scientists to contain a ratio of salt, sugar, and fat. That is the triad of doom, I call it. So if you think about what is that? Well, that's chips, right? Salt and fat. That's ice cream, right? Fat and sugar. That's pizza. That's all the stuff that tastes good, unfortunately. Right? I'm here. I'm a New Jersey Italian, so I'm like surrounded by it everywhere I go. I smell it when I walk out of here. But when we eat hyperpalatable foods, we will eat 160% more total calories, and those are nutrient inferior calories, mind you, that are filled with synthetic toxic chemicals, which are foreign to the body, cause systemic inflammation, and it does nothing of great benefit outside of the fleeting mouth pleasure you experience. Wipe that completely out of your life. That has to be the goal.
What are some of your favorite training, if you're a man over 40, you want to build muscle, right?
Yep.
What would be some of your favorite exercises or some of the foundation exercises or movements or whatever that you would need in that journey?
So very simply, humans, what do? We push, we pull, we squat, we hinge at the waist, and then we rotate or we resist rotation through the core, right? So 5 basic primary movements, and then we build on there. If you can do a standing overhead press, dumbbell, barbell, I'd say start with the dumbbell at first, start with light dumbbells, because we need to be able to reach up over our head. Right? You got to pick up the luggage and put it up over the head for your wife or the little old lady on the, we need to be able to reach up over our head. We need to be able to, so vertical press, vertical pull. I need to be able to do some chin-ups. Pull myself up over the wall. I got pit bulls trying to bite my ass. I got to get over the fence, motherfucker. Right? So, and then we have a horizontal press, horizontal pull. So whether that's a simple push-up or a variation of I would do a little bit more of an incline press as opposed to a prone press. Years of shoulder issues. I've seen so many shoulder issues from just flat pressing. Let's go slightly more in an incline. Or now, when we do a traditional push-up, we're getting free scapular motion. right? So when we're on a bench, the scapula is actually kind of impinged through the weight. But when we're doing push-ups, you actually get that full movement of the scapula. I like push-ups more so now and a little bit older, more injury averse, than a lot of the heavy pressing anymore. And then I would start with a body weight squat, and then I would add load like a kettlebell from there. As I'm an older man now, I'm more averse to spinal loading. I don't put barbells on my back anymore, but I will do a lot of Bulgarian split squats, right? I'll hold some weight, kettlebells. I call it like suitcase squats. I'll hold like a kettlebell, dumbbell. I'll kind of make it challenging, right? Do that stuff. And then from a hinge perspective, it's a variation of the deadlift. I do a lot of unilateral single leg deadlifts now that I'm in my later 40s. When I was in my 20s, man, I was fucking barbell deadlifting, going crazy, right? Yeah. But I got L5S1 issues. I got cervical spine issues. Like, I got enough injuries to tell the younger bucks out there, you know what? Avoid that, because you can still look fucking just as good, maybe even better, but kind of sticking to those. Now, dips are great if you have good shoulder health, but I'd say don't go all the way down. Kind of keep it more of like a 3/4 dip, right? Protect the shoulder joint. That's a pretty good, and then it's just variation of vertical push and pull, horizontal push and pull. That, squatting is just bending the knee, whether I'm doing a step up, 6, 8, 12, 18 inch up onto a box, hitting any variation, the lunge or the kettlebell, and then just doing those single leg unilateral deadlift variations are all awesome.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love it. Okay. Hydrogen water, because that came up in some place. I can't remember where I saw it. Tell me about
it. Well, I just did a little rant on this. Hydrogen water, right? Yeah. Well, what is water? H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. So most of these fools, they're simply selling you water. All water is hydrogen water. Now they say, well, we're adding an extra hydrogen atom to the water. Are you? Are you, though? With that little plastic gadget you bought from Alibaba for later, because I've done the research. They're making those for $2. You can go, Funk. You can come out with your whole brand, put your logo on there. Going to cost you $2 or $3 to get the same damn bottle Gary Breck is selling for what, $300?
Right.
Does it even work? No. So years and years ago, 10, 15 years ago, we worked with a hydrogen water company who were verified. Kind of like they were like a Kangen type of company, the under the sink and the whole, like, all these different funnels and chambers. It was like a $5,000 machine. They came, they installed it. They wanted to work with me in this hydrogen water as like pH and as a purifier and all this, that, the other thing. Awesome. Great. And they had made these like special hydrogen bottles for me, branded. Oh, great. Cool. Gonna pay me some nice money? Love it. Yes. Show me the research. Well, it was all theoretical. Show me the research that this actually works, and boy, I will cash that check. I can't wait to cash that check. Right?
It's not.
No research.
No research.
No research. So right now, there is nothing. And what I also like to say is like, hey, it's the year 2024. How long have humans been here? Well, how about this? How long has life on this planet been here? Since the dawn of time, effectively, give or take, right? Okay, you know what's worked? Natural spring water. Everything you need is in natural spring water. Oh, but we can't get that. Bullshit. 20-minute drive from where I'm standing right now, my local area, there is actually a water treatment plant right on a spring, mountain spring, little purification center. And I'll get like 20 of the 5-gallon drums, throw in the back of my truck, put them in my basement. Boom. Like, you might have to go a little farther. There's a lot of ways that we can get purified spring water. I'd say you can purify it yourself inexpensively. You get that shit on Amazon. Yeah. Berkey has there's a lot of good filters out there. But again, the hydrogen water craze is just, it's bogus.
Yeah.
It's the carnivore diet, it's the keto, it's just the next bogus thing. And when you look at the people who sell it, it's the same fucking people selling hydrogen water that sold you every other fad over the last 6 years.
100%.
Right?
100%.
How many of my elite world champions were drinking hydrogen water? to look and perform at Olympic levels or better?
Yeah.
Zero.
Love
And they were eating oatmeal too, by the way, peasant food,
Yeah.
as Ashley likes to say, right?
I love that you brought up carnivore, keto, and all the rest of those restrictive fad diets out there that people continue to. And unfortunately, again, for specifically guys who are coming in, like, new people who are just want to get back to shape. Like,
Yeah.
they just want to get, okay, listen, I'm ready. I looked at myself in the mirror and I need to get back into shape. So and so's talking about the keto. My friends tell me, because a lot of times their buddies or their wife, you need to be vegan. You should go vegan because so and so did this and their husband did this, or keto or carnivore or Joe, because Joe Rogan does it. So a lot of, if Joe does it, it's good for Joe, that's good for me. So all of these things are, what are your thoughts on all of these diets that cloud the industry and also make it very difficult for someone who wants to get back into health and back into fitness?
I agree. And I love Rogan. I have
Yeah,
a deep
me
respect
too.
for Rogan. But
100%.
Joe Rogan does not follow the carnivore diet. If you follow Joe's Instagram page, how often does he show a bowl of pasta? Is there a loaf of bread? Is there a side of potatoes? Is he sipping on some alcohol? Which is totally fine. It's his life, it's his prerogative. But the carnivore community takes one meal Rogan eats or one statement he says, and they conflate that into a straw man argument about how carnivore is the only and best diet there is. That is false. Now, we understand humans are opportunistic omnivores. Since the dawn of time, humans have eaten whatever we could get our hungry little hands on, right? The notion that our ancestors walked past a blueberry bush because they were hunting antelope that maybe they wouldn't even catch is fucking insane, right? And then like the whole paleo thing, where there is proof in the scientific record of Neanderthal having used mortar and pestle to crush oats, right? So the whole Lauren Cordain and Rob Wolf paleo diet solution and don't eat oats because Neanderthal Paleolithic man didn't. Bullshit. We know that they did. We know that they did. And that data was out there when those fucking books were written, right? That's the stuff that really bothers me because it is conflating the facts to sell a widget for marketing purposes only, right? So when we look at carnivore is BS, and everyone who goes on carnivore falls off. Paul Saladino, I think, is the biggest, corrupt case of that. He's a guy who was vegan, then he was keto, then he was carnivore. Now he's calling omnivore animal-based, right? So he's just remarketing the widget while being in business with the Liver King, who is one of the outed con men, the biggest cases of an outed con man in the entire industry, lying, doubling down on his lying about using performance-enhancing drugs to look a certain way while using that as a marketing gimmick to sell his products. And he owns the company that Paul Saladino also co-owns. So it's like you look at these fucking con men, they are not here to help people. They are here to make money. And when we understand what's their motivation, is their motivation to simply educate the population on best practices, irregardless of their ability to monetize? Or are they simply just trying to make more money? Easy to understand. So when we look at keto and carnivore and paleo and all the other fad diets, it's just a point of differentiation. That's all it is, because in order to sell something, you must be different. And how are you different? Well, paleo was an offshoot of the keto diet, of the Atkins diet, which was like a macro diet, right?
Yes.
And I kind of, I like Rob Wolf,
Yeah.
but Rob Wolf is kind of responsible for this because Rob Wolf was the Zone guy.
Right.
And then Zone kind of went through its arc, and then Rob came out with the paleo, which was basically kind of Zone with a few less ingredients, right? And then Rob again became a keto guy once paleo had kind of run its marketing course. Then Rob went keto, and then Rob started dabbling into the whole fasting thing as the keto wave was crashing. And then Rob launched a supplement that was initially created as a high sodium product for people on keto, right? Because you have to supplement. And then they pivoted again and they turned that supplement into an electrolyte replacement, which now he's killing it. Right. So when you have, some inside information, you understand the industry and you can see the trends. Like I was working in the GNC back in 1991. I saw these fads. I remember you might remember Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale's The Anabolic Diet, the Metabolic Diet, Dan Duchaine's Body Opus, right? I remember those back in the late 80s and the early 90s. How many times have they come and failed and come and failed and come and failed? So now we see it again. Carnivore. Yeah. Bullshit, dude. Yeah. Now, I've seen this thing 3-4 times in the last 25, 30 years. It's another fad that these con men and women, because there are a lot of ladies doing it too, and they're preying upon the general community, and that makes me upset.
Me too.
Because now they're inhibiting the average person's ability to make real lifestyle change. So the person at home feels like they're failing. Man, I followed it and I just feel terrible. It's not working. And they hit that wall and they think it's their fault. Then they bounce back to their old bad habits with even more guilt and self-loathing and another L on their scorecard. And they think it's their fault when it's not. They just follow the marketing of a charismatic charlatan.
It's unbelievable that in 2024, with Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all of the fitness and health influencers and experts and all of these people who are go into the industry to help people, right, to help people transform, that still today we are in the worst health we've ever been, right? Like obesity, chronic health issues, mental health, the list goes on. Meanwhile, we have probably the most we've ever had in modern day history when it comes to fitness professionals, right? On all levels, like so preaching the fitness thing. And like, if you look, I'm like, well, how, that doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not even talking about technology and medical and all of that stuff. I'm just talking about the fact that in an industry where you sign up to help people transform their lives and their health and their bodies, you sign up. This is why I'm doing this. And at this point, throughout all the years, now we have even an easier way to reach people, like literally touching people. And we are still in the worst health shape, obese in the history of mankind, pretty much. I mean, it blows me away. Like, that's when you know, like, if you think back, okay, that's when you know that it's transactions over transformations. I just want money, 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 money. And it's the people who you see who are, and so the reason why that just kind of gets me is because, like, I get emails every day. Oh, I see you're an influencer. I can help you do this and do that. First thing I say is I'm not a fucking influencer. I always say that. And it always gets them like, oh, sorry. I mean, you influence people. I said, no, I'm not a fucking influencer. Okay. Do your homework before you email me. Don't fucking just come here. Anyways, you can see I'm getting,
I get it, babe. I get it.
But it's like, you got to think about, like, you got to see the work. You got to see the work that person you're following does, not the followers. The followers don't mean shit, because if they had that many followers and they're only showing you 1 or 2 transformations, there's a mismatch here. If they're there for transformations and you only see a couple things, but there's next exercise, best this, best that. Here's me with my butt hanging out. Here's me shredded, like over and over. Oh, here's this science that I did. Oh, here's this. But you don't see any proof of their work. It's transactional, and they're not there for you.
Yes, sir.
And it's it's shame on the fucking health and fitness industry. That's what it is. Because there's only a few of us out there.
It's such a small group of us that are doing the actual work, and I think what the good thing is we stand out.
Totally.
Right? We stand out when put up against the group. We stand out immediately because we're immediately different. We have harder work to do now because we don't resort to the same fallacious marketing practices that they do. We can't just hide behind some sort of, piecemeal bullet point, kind of study, or pieces of a study to sell the next, hydrogen water bottle or the next, cow testicle supplement. I mean, cow testicles, bro.
Oh, that's now? That's new? That's it?
That's new. That's what Paul Saladino and Liver King have been selling for a while, making a shit ton of money. Selling fucking, here, put my balls in your mouth, baby. Like, that's literally what they're saying. It's got to be, I got to imagine while they're sitting on their piles of money, they are laughing at how many suckers
100%.
are buying dick balls or, cow ball pills.
100% there. 100%.
Right? Instead of just doing the simple, basic, tried and true aspects of health and fitness, which is eating single ingredient, healthful, whole foods, matched to your lifestyle based upon goals, right? Very simple. We say something the 4x4. 4 meals, 4 hours apart, 4 times per day. Start there. Don't overthink it. 3 meals and a snack, 3 meals and a shake. Hey, start there and then kind of like self-evaluate, modify. Me, I eat 5 to 6 meals a day because of my lifestyle and the way I train. Doesn't mean you have to, but like right around that simple, easy cadence, as long as you're eating whole foods, your body will self-limit ingestion, right? Very hard to eat 3 apples. Very easy to eat 3 slices of pizza. Right? So once we kind of like just sit, that's just simple and basic. Hey, go for a walk. Move your body every day. Just pick 30 minutes and move your body. This is just to get started. Move your body for 30 minutes every day. I don't even care what you do. Just get in the habit of doing that and then start to build a little more complexity, doing something that you enjoy, but challenges you just a little bit. Whatever that might be. Maybe it's throwing a Frisbee through a hoop. That's fine. Right? Walking back, getting it, throwing it. Hey, dude, that is cool. I got people who do all sorts of really fun stuff that are just moving their bodies finally, and then they just keep transitioning into something else, because the doors keep opening. And that's where then they become those everyday athletes that we talk about, going to bed. Nobody ever say, hey, coach, I'm really mad at you. I got too much sleep last night. I feel great.
Never said.
Never. Nobody's ever gotten mad about gotten too good of sleep, right? I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But how many times are people like, oh, fuck, man, I went to bed too late last night. I was watching Netflix and my girl wanted to see the next episode, so I stayed up and fuck, I'm just dragging ass. That happens way more than, that episode will be on tomorrow night. And better yet, it gives us something to watch tomorrow, because the worst thing is when your series is over. Like, now what are you going to watch, right? So we like to really like drag those out as far as possible.
Yeah.
Again, just going back to like the basic, the simple, instead of the complex. And maybe the last little analogy, I'll use the sports of boxing and wrestling. So you walk into a boxing gym, the first punch you're going to learn is the jab. First punch. You go watch Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua, the number one punch landed at the world-class level is what? It's the jab. The most basic, simple punch a little kid learns day one is the number one punch most landed at the world-class level. The first takedown you learn in a wrestling room is a single leg. The number one most, common takedown in the Olympics is the single leg. Now, boy, there are some pretty crazy, complicated combinations and techniques, right? Insane stuff that looks beautiful on Instagram. You never pull it off in the real world. I like to use that because I'm always looking for evergreen principles, right? Because if it works in one niche, it should be able to, the principle should work in every niche. And if it does, we apply that very simply here. The most basic things work most of the time for most of the people. So let's just do that before we get to the last 10% is individualization. It's like, oh, okay, you want to go fight in the UFC? Well, then maybe 6 months later, you want to go run a marathon. Maybe 6 months after that, you're going to do like a little CrossFit competition. That's just a little 10% tweak to like training, periodization and maybe a little bit of nutrition change. It's like 10% off baseline. It's not 100% overhaul of their entire life. Just, like right now, you could go distance run, you could do a powerlifting thing, you could wrestle, like you could do almost anything athletically at a very high level right now without any major change. And then you could tweak just a couple small things about your day to specialize in that one objective for, 6 weeks, 6 months, however long that training course would be.
Speechless. Mike, last words. This has been absolutely amazing.
Last words from me?
Yes, yeah. Yeah. So I just look at the time. I'm like, I want to respect your time. This has been amazing. You're going to come on here all the time, just to let you know. I hope you are willing to come back. We talk one specific thing. I got tons of questions left for you. It's just unbelievable. We do have a common, I believe this is your friend, or a common person that we both know, Clark Bartram.
Yeah, Clark is my new friend, but someone I've looked up to for my whole career, right? Because Clark's a little bit farther down the road than I am, and he was the guy on the magazines that I was looking at and buying as a kid. So I remember Clark almost my whole career, and then now, the ability to call Clark a friend, to be able to call him on the phone. I know you guys are very close, so it's like, man, but like I said, we stand out.
Exactly.
Right? Guys like us, man, we stand out. And what's so cool is we're all in the same game, right? But for me, I'm like, you guys need to go and work with Funk. You need to go and work with Clark. Like, you need to seek these guys out, these masters of their craft. You need to follow them. You need to see what they have. You need to match their products, their services, their content. Like, that's like all my community needs to go and check you guys out, because I know I'm providing a value to my people by sending them to you for what you have. Now, there's a lot of the charlatans that I will fight so my people stay away from. Do not go there. But man, go to Funk, go to Clark. Like, there's a small group of people that stand out, man. And I think it's special because none of us have the ego. We have that abundance mentality. Like, we are here to serve, to help, to provide value. And I say, man, there's 8 billion humans on this planet. Wish that I could. I cannot work with every single one. And I am so happy that you and Clark are out here to serve your men in your communities. And it's an uphill battle for all of us, right? So, love it.
I literally said the exact same thing in our last coaching call. When I said I was having you on, I was saying, well, we're getting Mike Dolce on, and everyone was excited. They was like, oh my God, it's going to be great. Funk and Mike Dolce, it's going to be amazing. And that's the message I brought out was like, we're not, specifically the three of us actually, we're not competing. This is like, there's so many men that need our help. There's so many people that need our help. And, we're all on the same page. It's like instead of, we're like, our arms are locked.
Yes, sir.
In battle. You know what I mean? As we move forward. And I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. This has been amazing. This has been fun. We finally get to meet. I got to go down to New Jersey. You got to come up to Toronto at some point if you're ever coming to TO.
Absolutely. I will. We try and get up to Canada at least once a year. Yeah. I come up to drink your coffee and eat your croissants, to be fair. Yeah. Right? So whatever Toronto has to offer, bro, let's go, man. Let's do it.
And because we have UFC 300 up, I'm sure some of the guys will ask me to ask you, what are your thoughts on, let's go down some of the fights. You want to pick some fights or at least give me your ideas on some of the fights?
Well, let me be, I'm like,
okay.
I'm a big fan, but this card is lackluster for a UFC 300. And really? I only say that because I remember Brock Lesnar headlining UFC 100. And I remember that was the feeling going into that was this is the biggest card of all time, right? Yeah. Going into UFC 300, it's a good fight, but it's not a world beater. right? It's two good guys. It's more of this card is built more for like fight insiders. And I like the big number, like 300, 200, 100 to bring in new audiences,
Right.
right? And I think, and I'm not a promoter. And I know, boy, Dana tried, but it's an unfortunate circumstance that they didn't have the ability to use UFC 300 to open the door to a broader audience with bigger name athletes. Connor should be on this card, right?
Yeah.
Like a guy like Connor has to be on this card. Why wouldn't he be on the card? Because they're jumping over dollars to pick up some pennies here. Everyone involved, and it's unfortunate. That being said, man, I think Pereira's tough to beat. I think he's so big and dynamic. So we'll see what happens in that fight. I don't know. And, Hill coming off the injury, will he be able? Because to be fair, it's hard to come back from an injury and be confident, especially when you have that much pressure on your back and you're fighting a fucking killer. Right? Pereira's coming to kill. Now, is Hill going to be ready for that? Maybe. We haven't seen enough, so it might be some ignorance on my behalf. I don't know enough about his training. I don't know how well it's done. I haven't heard any rumors. Usually I'm good. I got to call Chael. Chael probably knows, right? So that being said, I think that's a tough one. I'm excited for Kayla Harrison to come in. Actually, I think that's a big one. Obviously my career working with Ronda, I'm very interested to see. Kayla has a very similar arc to what Ronda had through the Olympic Judo organization. And, Kayla's got 2 gold medals. Ronda had 1 bronze, right? Kayla's got the PFL world title. Ronda had the UFCs. And now she's fighting Holly Holm, who is a similar or a shared opponent, right?
Right.
Holly was able to get Ronda out of there. Let's see what Kayla can do to Holly. And I've known Holly a long time. She's a beast.
Yeah.
Right. So that's going to be a really good one. I think who else is on the card?
Gaethje Holloway.
I think Gaethje wins that pretty easily, and I'm a Max fan, but Max is a little guy. He's tall, but I don't want to say frail, but he doesn't have a 55er's physique, and he hasn't taken, like, Gaethje hits like a middleweight. I know I'm close friends with Dwayne Ludwig. Right? And I know what they do up there, and I know the lure of Gaethje. Gaethje drops heavyweights, man.
Yeah.
Now he's fighting a dude who's, been fighting 45ers for a long period of time. Max has some range, but I think Gaethje gets that done.
Yeah.
And I think it might be, I never go out on a limb. I think Gaethje finishes. I think he finishes Max.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because who's not a Max Holloway fan, by the way? I'm not rooting against him. I'd love to see him stay at 45. I don't know if he can. Maybe he just aged out in that division though with the big weight cut.
Right. Wow. So you said something to me that I didn't even think about, but made sense regarding their UFC 300 not being what it should be in regards to like 100 being the best. They missed something there with UFC 300 because and then you said something. It's definitely for the aficionados, the UFC, the MMA aficionados who know the level of fights on that card from start to finish. Appreciate it. But you are so right when you say UFC 300 needs to be a card that brings everybody in, because when my sister used to watch fights with me all the time with us, when she asked me who's fighting UFC 300, I'm like, oh, you probably don't even know. You know what? You wouldn't even know. And that's because Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill, she have no clue who those two are. She wouldn't even know who Alex Pereira is. And then even if I went a little bit deeper, Max Holloway still fighting? Like, that's what the mindset would be. And that makes sense. Because if I said Conor McGregor is fighting, everyone would watch it.
Conor McGregor or John Jones,
got
injury.
Yeah.
But he's the guy. Why isn't Tom Aspinwall fighting Stipe on this card? A true heavyweight interim titles on the line. I would have made John vacate for the true, if I'm running the show, hey man, that's what all of a sudden now it's a big fight. But even the co-main event, the 2 young ladies.
Yeah.
I don't know who they are.
No.
If I don't know who they are, my mom doesn't know who they are. My cousins don't know. And like your sister, she doesn't know. Nobody knows who's on this card, so nobody's talking about it at the water cooler. No one's going to talk about it on Sunday morning either, and that's a huge miss. I got to imagine it's just part of a calculated algorithm now where they're just filling media slots for ESPN and ABC or whatever it is. But it's a huge missed opportunity as a fan to get the excitement, because the sport deserves that type of excitement. I mean, UFC 300, it comes around every 3 years you get one of these type of cards.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and you think about the hype the Super Bowl gets.
Right.
The NBA finals get, like, you think about the hype those sports get, like UFC can't get that once in or 3-year cycle when NFL can get it once a year. So again, it's a missed opportunity. No disrespect to any of the athletes on the card. I know it's a good chance for them, but man, why aren't there some household names on the card to anchor it down? I think again, that's just a big miss.
Yeah, I think it's just a household name because the card is like, for me and Angelo, this card's insane. It's amazing. Like from the very first fight when you have Figueiredo fighting freaking Cody, like it's like, okay, we're this is it. Like I'm gonna be the first to sit down. If I was in Vegas, I would have my seat number one, my popcorn or whatever else I'm eating and watching the fights. But for the regular person, I think they probably tried to, but unfortunately they did miss the ball. So that sucks. But how do people reach you, Mike?
Instagram is probably the easiest. I'm most active. I think I understand Instagram, the energy a little bit more. So at the Dolce Diet on Instagram or thedolcediet.com. Those are always the easiest. And all the general links are there. Just type in my name and, my random stuff will pop up. People can find me, which is cool.
It, man. Please, guys, go and follow him right now. The best videos, the best answers to the questions, the best content, the best rants, the best realness. That's what it is. It's realness. And just follow. And you'll hear a lot of the same things that I've been saying over and over and over again that you're going to continue to hear over and over and over again. But having a legend like you on today has been absolutely incredible, man. I really appreciate you. Award-winning, highest level at everything you do. The Dolce Diet, greatest book. And for nutrition, as far as I'm concerned, I don't even know if you still have the Dolce certification, because if I have trainers who are on this, get that certification. If there's a nutrition certification you're going to get, that's the one you're going to get, because it transcends athletes, it transcends regular mom and pop, it transcends everybody. So definitely head over to see Mike and get more of Mike Dolce. So thank you so much for being on, brother.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the time. Thanks to everyone who took the time to hang out with us. And I cannot wait till the next time I come on back and we wrap it up again, brother.
100%. Take care.
Okay, bye.